Hi again. Yes, I'm doing these back to back, so probably gonna run out of breath again, but I will try my best. Okay, so here we have Chapter Three's lecture, and this is Ancient Egypt from Narmer to Cleopatra. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so just the title of, and then learning objectives. Again, you might find something here that you would like to write about in the future. They're great beginnings to an argument or compare and contrast, an explanation. Pardon me. Okay, so here we've got the map of ancient Egypt. I always thought it was so interesting that Lower Egypt is north of Upper Egypt, and I'm not sure if that's because of the mountains. I can't remember, but lots of these cities we're going to recognize in the lecture. Here we got the timeline and summary for a really fast explanation. Very quick if you want to do a screen cap. Okay, so here we've got a painted scroll. This one, like I said, is going to be faster than the last one, I promise. So it's just highlights. You're going to have to read the chapter. This painted scroll shows a combination of humans, animals, and animal-human hybrids. How cool. Kind of like, we saw the Lion Man in the Neolithic period. The artist has mixed frontal and profile depictions of the bodies, so remember that is a composite view. The best evidence that we have for daily life in Egyptian society is tomb decoration. It's kind of cool. Also, the majority of Egyptian art, with the exception of the Amarna period, which we will see very memorably change with Akhenaten, is that it is conservative and formulaic. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. Okay, this is a site, Hierakonpolis, that has yielded significant evidence for pre-dynastic art. So this is a location, Hierakonpolis. Many early mural paintings were discovered here, dated from 3500 to 3200 BCE. So this is the oldest, and it's interesting to see how different it is from what will come. Okay, and then this is huge. Okay, so we've got to really pay attention to this one. The palette of King Narmer. Okay, this was also discovered here at Hierakonpolis, pre-dynastic. Notice the crown. Okay, now let's talk about some of the things that are super important about, this is the front. Most importantly, the palette of Narmer contains a historical narrative just incredibly detailed. It commemorates the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt and depicts the events of this unification. Big, big, big deal. The symbolism of the crowns worn by the king is the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. So it's like the crown has become a combination. The palette contains many of the conventions for representing the human figure until the end of the New Kingdom, and we'll learn more about that. The bull knocking down the fortress wall symbolizes the superhuman strength of the god king. Okay, so lots of things to remember on that one. Very, very important. Okay, the false doors. Right here we see this little map, and this is a mastaba tomb. False door, how cool is that? The false door was meant to give access to the Ka, and you can read more about the Ka in the chapter. A mastaba is a rectangular brick or stone tomb with sloping sides. You can see that here. The architecture of a mastaba has influenced the shape of this monument. So we've heard about mastabas before. Tombs. This step pyramid was created by Imhotep. He is a pretty early artist, the first known artist. So this is the first time we see an artwork and we know who created it. That's pretty cool. His patron was Dozier. I think that's how you say that. The step pyramid was a single structure and symmetrical in design. So we see that it kind of resembles the ziggurat, but it's not the same in purpose. So the ziggurat from the last lecture and the last time period of Sumer. But this is not a temple. Okay, here we see the same pyramid as part of a much larger complex, but still single structure. Here we know the artist again, Imhotep. There are many columns in the hypostyle hall of an Egyptian temple. So that's it. That's significant. The many columns. Okay, the shape of the capital columns. The column capitals, very tippy top here, in a hypostyle hall, was that of a lotus or a papyrus. The lotus is commonly used to symbolize Upper Egypt. Important fact. Okay, this is an aerial view of the 4th dynasty and the complex of pyramids at Giza. These are, super famous. Everyone's heard of these because they're still there. It includes pyramids dedicated to Menkaure, Khafre, and Khufu. It's one of the most memorable and still present representations of ancient Egypt. The Great Pyramid reflects the influence of the city of Heliopolis. That city was the seat of the powerful cult of Res, whose emblem was the benben, and you can read more about that in the chapter. Art historians now believe that the model for the shape of the pyramids was the benben. Notice that the stepped pyramid is not a part of this complex. They're slightly different than the stepped pyramid. Okay, stone fills most of the interior of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Art historians call the courses of dressed stones used in the construction of the Great Pyramids ashlar masonry. This is a model of the period complex. The intended message of the pyramids is a reminder of the absolute power of the pharaoh. Pyramids were the most common royal tombs in the Old Kingdom. And when I teach this to my younger students, we talk about how the pyramids were originally covered with a smooth surface. And the very tippy top had a little gold pyramid, solid gold. And those, of course, have all been stolen. That's the way it goes. This is the Sphinx, which everyone knows about, but it's significant that the stone for this monument came from the Giza Plateau, so pretty nearby. This is Khafre. He is, the guy we are honoring with the Great Pyramid. Okay, we've got sculptors at work here. This is one of my favorites, Menkaure and Khmerennebti. Okay, in this sculpture, the male is slightly taller than the female, so that's significant. And the fact that they have one leg step forward, that's one of the signs of royalty. We begin to see similarities between representation of figures due to the Egyptian canon. So that is the term, the canon, that describes a system of proportions used throughout the history of Egyptian art. The canon. So that's significant. Remember that. Okay, remember that a mastaba is a tomb. So this is describing inhabitants of a tomb. And this is our first secretary, the seated scribe. Portrait of Khafre. Notice again, it's from his mastaba, his tomb. Seated statue of Hemunu. Again, mastaba. Okay, this is a cool one. In this artwork, an Egyptian official named Tai his importance is shown by the artist made his scale much larger than the other figures. Look at that. These are like tiny little people. It's like, what's his name? Gulliver. The scene is of a river. So see the boats and the oars. And then this is to signify that this is a dense forest. The hunting scenes and tomb interiors symbolize the triumph over evil. They are also, the hunting scenes are meant to provide nourishment for the Ka. And you've read about that. Okay. This is just a farming scene. Okay, here we've got a seated statue, so we see a change in style. And this slightly pessimistic expression, it's an indication that it was made during the Middle Kingdom. So we see a change in style with the Middle Kingdom. Tomb of Numhotep. Okay, Beni Hassan, that is a significant location. Here we see information about the Middle Kingdom burial practices. So that is significant in its difference. Okay, the Middle Kingdom, we find the rock-cut tomb. So that is also significant. It took on the function of the Old Kingdom mastaba. So now the rock-cut tomb is the new style, whereas the mastaba was the old style. Okay, here we've got our Lady Pharaoh Hatshepsut. This mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri was built for her. Notice that at this site, there are multiple connected structures. And then here we have Hatshepsut. There, we've got this kneeling statue. Her royal headdress and kilt indicate her statue, indicate that she's pharaoh. And it's interesting that she's wearing the beard too, but I think that was also indicative of her status. Okay, remember one thing about her, she had a chancellor who was also an architect engineer, and his name was Senenmut. That might come up. Okay, here we've got a painted relief where Hatshepsut has a successful expedition to Punt. I can't say this anymore. Forgive me. Okay, and then we've got the Temple of Ramses II. This is in its original location in Abu Simbel. It's a mortuary temple. It was an old kingdom structure, and it is the site of ceremonies to honor the dead king. So a mortuary temple, remember that, honors a dead king. Well, don't they all? But I guess that's significant. This temple was actually moved away from its original location to save it from the Aswan High Dam Reservoir, which I guess was flooding, and they had to move it to save it. Wow. I love these columns. Oh my goodness. Have you ever seen one in a museum? They are ginormous. I just wanted to point out that in the Egyptian temple, here we see post and lintel construction. So that's just like the two posts and then the lintel across the top. Kind of like Stonehenge. This is a restored view of the temple of Amun-Re at Karnak. And here we've got an aerial view, and this is like a modern photo. I love how it just exists amongst the city. Okay, this is the hypostyle hall. Remember that it has many columns. This is the clerestory. clerestory? Not sure. Pylon temple. Many of the temples of the New Kingdom follow the axial plan, and you'll find more about that in the chapter as well. Okay, again, columns in the clerestory in the hypostyle hall. Lots of columns. Okay, here we have a change. Now we have a block statue. So the New Kingdom sculptural form, embodied by this statue of Sen-en-Mut, is a block. They didn't do a lot of carving. Very different. Okay, now frescoes. Now we're getting into the fresco secco. So we'll learn a little bit about that. So the frescoes from the tomb of Nebamun show us that the New Kingdom artists did not always conform to the canon of representation. So here we've got a little bit of a difference in the way, look at these people. Very different. It's not always conforming to the canon. So we're moving away from that canon of representation. And the fresco secco technique, it has a drawback. The colors don't fuse to the wall surface like later frescoes did in, like, say, the Renaissance. But tomb paintings were all created with this technique. So they didn't figure that out yet. So it's amazing this survived. And we've got a hunting scene. The primary purpose of most Egyptian funerary was to equal the deceased's existence in the afterlife to that of their life on earth. So, showing all the things they did when they were alive, as they will do in death. Okay, now we've got such a huge difference. Akhenaten. Huge difference if you look at him. Okay? Yes, it's a him. The most likely explanation of Akhenaten's body type is that it was a deliberate artistic reaction against the established style. Okay? Big, big change. Akhenaten abandoned the worship of a multitude of Egyptian gods in favor of just Aten, or Aten. Akhenaten moved his royal court from Thebes to Amarna. Another big important thing, Akhenaten's androgynous image is considered to be a manifestation of the sun disk Aten, so his, roundness. The curving forms of the Amarna period contradicted the rigid lines of the traditional Egyptian canon, just as Akhenaten's new religion contradicted the old. The sculptor has depicted this Egyptian pharaoh with emphasis on the curves and swells of the belly, hips, and lips. The elements that communicate the figure's royalty are the tall royal headdress and the ceremonial beard. Fascinating. Here's his wife, Akhenaten's wife Nefertiti, known for her beauty. And I'm not sure who this is. I can't remember. I don't think it's super important. Portrait of Taye. Okay, in this two-dimensional carving of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and three daughters, the only thing that is not unusual about it is the subject. The pharaoh is shown wearing the double crown. So much else has been questioned in this artwork, so it would be a great discussion piece. Okay, here now we're getting into Tutankhamun. Everybody knows King Tut. Immortality was the primary objective of mummification. Okay, again we've got Tutankhamun and this painted chest. Amazing that it survived. Made out of wood. Wow. And elaborately decorated. Found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Okay, and we've got another Sphinx here, looking back to the past. Okay, now this is Mentuhotep. The significance, I think, here is notice the resemblance between this portrait and Menkaure from the statue we looked a while back with that pharaoh and his wife, Khmer-Nebti. Same positioning, same material, and that is all due to the Egyptian canon. So, looking back again, even though they are many dynasties apart, so this is the 26th dynasty, and Menkaure was the 4th dynasty. Okay, Temple of Horus. This new kingdom temple at Edfu was created to honor Horus, who appears as a falcon, and he's a protector of the pharaoh. Horus, the falcon-headed god, was the son of Osiris and hunted down his father's murderer Seth. Oh, such an elaborate story. Osiris is the god of order who is believed to have brought civilization to the Nile. Important. Okay, we've got some additional notes here. We're going to get into the Roman Empire and the Rosetta Stone. I'm mentioning these things because they are important, so you might want to do a screen cap and look into that in case something is interesting to you and you want to write about it in the future. And here's some discussion questions. Again, you could do a screen cap if you're interested. Okay, and that's it for now.